Benita DeChancy of the Lithuanian Nationality Room.
I'm Frances Oliver, Labas from the Nationality Room.
And I'm Janet Carlisle, Labas from the Lithuanian Nationality Room.
We hope you enjoyed the music of Lithuanian composer Kyrianis and our walkthrough through the dining room of Janet Carlisle's dining room that is all decked out for Christmas. We wish we could see all of you in the Cathedral of Learning this year, but due to COVID, we are having to adapt just as you are adapting in your households. And we'd like you to, and our masks are decked out in the Lithuanian national colors of red, green, and yellow. And we would like to share with you Lithuania's Christmas customs. Lithuania is a country in Northern Europe, and in wintertime, it is in the midst of a cold, hard winter. Lakes are frozen, rivers are frozen. There is no greenery except for the fir pine and the evergreen trees. There is no fresh flowers, no fresh fruit, no fresh vegetables. And so Lithuania's holiday celebrations feature the natural materials that are at hand during this time of year. Christmas in Lithuania is called Kalėdos. The typical holiday greeting would be Šventų Kalėdas, or Blessed Christmas. Among the old country traditions still maintained by many of Pittsburgh's Lithuanian Americans is that of the solemn Christmas Eve celebration known as kūčios. The traditional preparations for this Christmas Eve meal would be started early in the morning in Lithuania. The houses would be thoroughly cleaned and all linen would be changed and food would be prepared for several days. Buckets of water were heated and everyone bathed and dressed in clean clothes. The supper table would be scrubbed and fresh hay would be thrown on top of the table to remind people of the manger where baby Jesus was born, and the table would then be covered with a fresh, clean white linen. The table would then be set with places for everyone in the household. Every family member would try to come home for the Christmas Eve meal. There would also be one plate left on the table put out for those that had departed in the past year. We would light a candle on the plate because it was believed that the spirit of the departed would join the family at the table on this sacred evening. Supper started when the sun went down and the first stars appear in the sky, and that would usually be around 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. The head of the household would say a blessing, and then a plate of Christmas wafers, known as plotlis, is placed in the center of the table. The head of the household would take a wafer and offer it to another family member who would break it off, wishing that we would all be together again in the coming year on the next Christmas Eve dinner. And everyone would take a wafer and break off a piece, giving Christmas blessings and wishes to one another. This is a tradition that is shared among many Northern European cultures, like Poland, Ukraine, and Slovenia, to name a few. The meal served on Christmas Eve would be a frugal meal that would not include meat, milk products, or eggs. Pittsburgh Lithuanians have tweaked this meal a bit to make it more like a Lenten meal with some dairy, like butter for bread, cream for our coffee, or a sweet cake for dessert. But what you have before you is a more traditional Lithuanian kūčios meal. The dinner would serve 12 dishes, one for each apostle. A typical menu would include some type of beet soup, hot or cold. The soup that we have today is a cold beet soup called borscht. It is usually dressed or accompanied by a sprig of dill on top, followed by other separate dishes. Mushroom-filled dumplings is very common as well. And the dumpling also is a very traditional food featured in many Eastern European countries. A fish or two fishes, like herring or cod, would also be featured, as well as boiled or baked potatoes, some kind of sauerkraut, and what we have today is a sauerkraut and carrot salad with a vinaigrette dressing. Also, we have a salad of potatoes and beets and beans with no dressing, simply the beet juice for the flavoring. Brown bread always accompanied every meal, and that too could also be considered a separate course. All of the food would be washed down with apple cider, if the family had it, or some other beverage. For dessert, typically we would not have a cake, but we would have small biscuits sweetened with honey, and we would pour over it poppy seed milk, which really doesn't have any milk in it at all, but it is poppy infused in the water. We would pour the milk over the biscuit and eat it, almost like cereal and milk for a breakfast. Another type of dessert would be our cranberry pudding, which is cranberries boiled down and taking a small piece out, adding flour to it to thicken it, adding it back to the cranberries with some sugar and boiled again. Depending on how much flour one would add to it, it would be thick like a pudding or a little bit thinner like a milkshake, and you would drink it. Ours is more like the milkshake, so we would have it in a glass, and that would be part of our dessert as well. On kūčios, everyone is expected to try some of each of the dishes that is served. It's considered unlucky to skip a dish, and it is also considered unlucky leaving the table before everyone is finished. The supper is eaten leisurely and very solemnly. Kūčios is considered to be a very special night, and on such nights, extraordinary things can happen. Children are told that water in the well might turn into wine, and that the animals in the stable would be able to talk, much like humans. The use of evergreens as decorations during kūčios and on other festive occasions has its roots in the old pagan customs that predate Christianity in Lithuania. Lithuania was the last of the nation-states in Europe to accept Christianity, doing so in 1387 when the Lithuanian Grand Duke Joaglia married the Catholic Polish princess Jadwiga, which further solidified Poland with Lithuania during the Middle Ages. Some Lithuanians adopt the German custom of decorating an evergreen tree. The ornaments that you see here are a relatively new custom. The figures are based usually on geometric shapes in nature and are usually made of straw or more recently, we've adapted it to paper straws. Once the evening meal is over and as midnight approaches, the uneaten food is still left on the table overnight as the family leaves for the midnight mass in the village church. It was believed that the souls of the departed family members would come visit the house during the night, and the table laden with food would make them feel welcome. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation of our Lithuanian Christmas customs. Please look on our room's website for a link to a site that talks about kūčios and shares 2 easy recipes for the poppy seed milk and cranberry pudding. Some of the information presented today was taken from the book Lithuanian Customs and Traditions by Danute Brazits-Binkisting. We would like to thank the members of the Lithuanian Room for sharing items for this presentation, as well as Len Borkowski for composing this dialogue. Sventu
Kaleidos.